What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Blood on the Razor Wire TV. Today, we got a former Federal Bureau of Prison employee. He was a special investigative agent. Those of you that have been in the feds, it's pretty shocking to even have an S.I.A. come on here and do an interview, so I'm grateful for that. You can give us a perspective that probably no one else can. So anyway, they called him Guard Hall. Scotty, tell the people who you are, where you're from, and we're going to get into your story and what it was like working in the Bureau for probably over 20 years.
Good morning. Glad to be on your show. First of all, I started following you over the last couple of years, and I grew up in a real small town in eastern Kentucky. Pretty normal childhood for an eastern Kentucky kid. Didn't like school, but didn't like working on the farm, so I went to school all the time. Then. Fortunately, at 17-year-old, I joined the Marine Corps. Got out of Kentucky. Thought I'd hit the big time, and went from that. Had an accident in the Marine Corps. Got discharged from the Marine Corps. Came back home, looking for jobs, looking for work. Got caught up with working for the sheriff's department for a couple of years. Worked for the local jail there for a few years. EMT, drove an ambulance, worked at a funeral home. Just work, trying to make things. Just trying to make it. Had a small kid and getting out of the Marine Corps and all that. Went to the unemployment office one day, and the lady said, we got a good job opening up, and you may be interested in it. May be fit for you. And so I went and filled the paperwork out. You didn't fill it out over a computer. You filled it out on the hard paper with a pen and pencil. And I applied for a position at the Federal Medical Center in Lexington, and the rest is history.
So you get a job at the Federal Bureau of Prisons. How old are you when you walk into this place?
I am 24, going on 25.
Are you a little nervous walking into a federal prison? I mean, you're going to work at this spot. Was it kind of like, uh-oh?
I was more apprehensive about always kind of been nervous or worried about proving yourself, and knowing my limitations, where I came from education wise, and just things I'd experienced. I knew that I was at a different level of law enforcement. And I needed to up my game, be more professional, and I wanted to be, I didn't want to make a mistake. So I was kind of more worried about that. As far as the horror stories of prison, I had some family members do time. So I knew that they was the bad things, but for the most part, it was made for movies. Most of the bad things that happen, you can get into bad things, but if you keep your nose clean and are a man, you're going to handle it pretty good. So that wasn't really a problem. Again, like I said, but on the other hand, too, you don't get up every day with any common sense and go to prison every day, over and over and over and over and over. I think, the inmates, it's bad enough you guys had to go there and do it all the time, but I looked at it like, but we get up every day and choose to come in here. So it's really different.
Let me ask you this, right? FMC, I actually was there. Yes, I have said before on this show that it was probably one of the most dangerous prisons that I've been to, even though it was considered a medical center. And yes, I said it was dangerous because of how many people are there. There's people that are on USP level, maximum security level, with guys that are camp level. Yes, but there's some dangerous things that happen there, right?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. A lot, especially it could get more dangerous there a lot quicker because it just wasn't designed for that. It wasn't designed for that. The security and how things are done. Not to indulge into that. I'm pretty sure limitations that we can talk about on that, but it just wasn't set up to be that. And when I started there, it was female, and there was 2,600 females there. So it was.
Wonder why you weren't afraid to go there originally. It was all female when you first walked in.
Yes, sir. I mean, I don't know if you remember the basement in Bluegrass Unit, the basement in Cardinal, the basement in Veritas Unit. All the basements were dorms. They were full. All the TV rooms were dorms. They only had like one or two TV rooms, and they were all down on the first floors. So I mean, yeah, it was packed. It was pretty intense on that, and like I said, that's a whole different ball game to play too, dealing with the female offenders. It was like you were a correctional officer, so you were down in their usually in their eyes anyway, but two, you're a man, and I would easily say 70% of the women there had been a victim of some horrible crime perpetrated by a male, and had probably taken a hit for the male, and maybe taken a charge or whatever, and then show up there. So you're trying to win the trust, and it is you want to be respectful, you want to have trust and be consistent, but it's hard to get them to understand that you don't have an alternative motive, which most of the men that they've dealt with, or most of the people they've dealt with, have had some type of alternative motive as to why they're treating them nice.
When we talk about alternative motives, right? I didn't know we were going to get into this type of conversation, but I mean, obviously, we just seen Dublin got shut down. The feds went in there, they took them people out, some people were arrested.
Right.
Then they get right back in there with a new warden. It's the same shit's going on. You got to be a lane brain to be like, okay, this just happened here. I'm coming here to fix the place, and now there's more shit going on under your watch. Like, what do you think about that?
It's always been the Bureau of Prisons nature of the beast is when your biggest requirement for management is your ability to move. If there's people out there that don't have enough common sense to know that they're not the right fit, but they're going to take that paid move and go out and be a warden, and they're not ready. They didn't deal. They should have been red flagged on the way up. We have a lot of programs, a lot of things in step to red flag inmates. I mean, we red flag you all guys every day. If you're a problem, you're going to SMU, or if you're going to SHU, you're going, it's pretty easy we judge pretty quickly, but, to have that, to look at your own self and say, no, that ain't that, we need to do something about this. And we've just never really, due to finances and due to short staff, you just really never had that opportunity. And that was one of the things I did take a great deal of interest in was, I showed up and worked every day. A lot of times I worked 16 hours. I can tell you some stories about, there was a crew, you may know the crews that staff at Lexington that were making as much or more than the warden was making, just working overtime. And so, it's like I showed up and worked. That's all I'd ever done. It's all I ever knew. I worked since I was a little kid growing up on a farm. My stepdad, or my dad, I call him. And then to see the dirty staff come in and try to make it quick, I didn't play that. I didn't go that route. I didn't do that. And I would tell them, hey, if I caught you doing something wrong, I'm going to the S.I.A. I'm going to the captain. You might want to beat me there, so you can tell your side of the story first.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you did do, right? And we'll get back to Lexington. We'll get into some of the dirty staff, because eventually you become the special investigative agent. Any dudes that are watching this that been to federal prison, they know who the S.I.A. is. He's the guy that when shit gets serious with staff or prisoners, someone gets killed, you're the guy they call in, and you're pretty much the guy that's testifying on the Bureau's behalf of what happened, how this dude got killed, when there's big packages of dope coming in or cell phones. Right. But we'll get into that in a minute. But you do also get involved. I mean, after you've been in the Bureau, you end up showing up for the crack riots, right? I want to talk a little bit about the crack riots.
Yeah.
Because that was a pretty serious situation, right? Tell us kind of what happens with the crack riots.
Well, again, right there in 95, a lot was going on with starting the disparity of fairness among the white inmates or the white citizens of the United States, dealing mainly with powder cocaine, where the inner city inmates or the inner city people were dealing with crack, and for some wise reason, someone who's never dealt with either one of them, probably they made a decision that one was worse than the other. We'll give you more time if you're selling crack, and they're more likely going to throw a gun charge on you, or they're more likely going to make you a terminal, or a longtime gang member, affiliate, or associate, those kind of things. So they decided, well, hey, we're going to re-examine this. We're going to maybe pass a new law, and then, of course, the inmates were hoping they were going to make it fair across the board, which would have cut and reduced a lot of sentences. And we're sitting in. I remember I'm at Lexington. It's in the morning, towards the afternoon. I'm sorry, it's towards the afternoon, and I get a call. Captain said, "Hey, you can go out and get the team ready." I said, "All right." I thought we may have something going on there at Lexington. I said, "All right." And we get out there, and the warden shows up and says, "Guys, y'all, both the teams, y'all flying. We got a plane coming in, pick you up Lexington. You're flying down to Memphis. They've lost the institution down there. It's pretty bad shape." Oh, it's like, okay, this is real. We're getting real. So we fly in down there for that. Spend 4 or 5 days there. It was pretty intense. Not as bad, of course, as a couple institutions had some more severe injuries, but we thought we may get to go to LA, and we didn't make that. We didn't go on that trip. But
let me stop you for a minute. You get to Memphis. What's going on when you guys do get to Memphis?
They have they got some inmates, about 400 secured in the gymnasium. They got about another 75 to 100 secure in the chapel. They got some in Unicor. Actually, the Unicor inmates were the ones that protected and saved the staff from being hurt in Unicor. So we show up, and they tell us we're coming in the back through the rear gate, and we're going to set up outside the gym in case they have trouble there. Then we'd move into there, or handle, or that was going to be the first group of inmates that we brought out and screened and got put on. We had 4 or 5 buses sitting outside the rear gate because they'd burnt a couple of the housing units down, or not down, they just burn them to where they couldn't be used inside.
What's the violence like when you get there? I mean, is there violence going on? I mean,
yeah, actually,
windows, are they assaulting staff? What's happening?
The staff issues had calmed down. I know they chased a staff member who had a camera. He was out there videoing on the ground. We thought it was funny when we first got there. Of course, it was serious, but we was laughing about it. But the fire truck came in, and the inmates got to the fire truck and got an axe off of it. And they were chasing the staff that were videotaping it with the old VCH cameras, and chased them down, got the cameras, got the videotape, and all that stuff. But then when we first get there, of course, we'd been there about 5 minutes, lined up outside the gym, and they hollered, "Hey, they got a fight in the gym." And we knew they had some staff members in there watching. So we were like, "What are we going to do?" And we were looking for it was me, and we had our lieutenant there, and we're like, "What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" And the lieutenant, he was kind of old school guy, pretty straightforward. He goes, "We didn't come here to stand outside the gymnasium all night. Let's go." So we stacked up, opened the door, and walked in. And of course, they were fighting. The inmates were fighting among the inmates. They weren't fighting staff. And I pulled out. Actually, it was kind of funny. I pulled a stinger out of my pocket, because we was trying to get them to lay down and they wouldn't, or to stop. They wasn't listening. So I pulled a stinger out and put it up there, and they was the first group of inmates that could see us. One of them said, "Oh my God, he's got a stinger," and they just laid down. Everything got quiet. It stopped. Then all of a sudden somebody grabbed me. I remember they grabbed me by the shoulder and they grabbed the lieutenant and they pulled us back out and shut the door. And they said, "Who authorized you to go in there? Nobody gave you that authorization." And, well, of course not. We didn't ask nobody. We're going to run around here looking for you all. I said, "But it's over. If you want to go get them out now, they're done. They're just sitting in there waiting to come out." So, but, yeah, and then after that, it lightened up after, the inmates saw that we were going to do what we were going to do, but we were going to be fair about it. And of course, the unfortunate thing was we had to take them out, put them on buses. They sat on the buses for about 3 days. I don't know if you've sat on a bus in full restraints, and we bring you a bag lunch, but that's where you're at. You're sitting there. There's no going, no getting off, and you go to the bathroom on the back of the bus after about the second day. It's pretty ripe, and but so yeah, that was the Memphis deal, and we had a
Ask you something though. Back then, right? I mean, there wasn't really a lot of, I guess you could say, prisoner rights really going on back then. Sometimes the staff busted people's heads open, right? I mean, were inmates getting assaulted? Just call it how it is.
I think I think they'd had some prior to us getting there. We weren't 100% sure. They wouldn't a lot talked about it. I know our team, our two teams were involved in just a couple of minor incidences in SHU. The special housing unit, they had some people locked up in there that were giving them a hard time, and they thought it may be easier for us to deal with them since we're not from there, being a new face, might break up the inmates being agitated. But another funny side to another story on that was we had a gentleman an inmate from Lexington that had transferred to Memphis. So he was in SEG when we went in the first time, and he was the one causing all the problems. And they opened the lieutenant brought us in, and it was us and our lieutenant, and he said, "Handle it," and so we got over there and we got to talking to him. He was like, "Oh, he recognized us." And while we're talking to him, he knew he dealt with us at Lexington. He knew the policies, he knew the ins and outs as well as y'all. You learn what you can go, how far you can go, and when this is getting ready to get serious and things are going to happen. But so he's sitting there trying to push that button, push the limit he could, and all of a sudden we popped the door and yanked him out and didn't let his feet touch the ground, took him down to the lieutenant's office, and the lieutenant said, "Hey, I know you know these guys, don't you?" He was like, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, he said, if you don't get up there and lay down and be quiet and leave us alone, they'll be back." And so they didn't have a problem about him anymore. He kind of realized this was a different ball game today.
Let me ask you this, right? I'm going to take you back now. We'll go back to FMC Lexington. And I know just before we got on the actual interview, you had talked about, seeing a homicide there, right?
Yes.
How did that affect you? Kind of tell the people what happened and whether or not it affect you to see someone, get killed in prison. Does it affect you when you go home?
Yes, it did. This one, yeah. Anytime, anytime you're dealing with that, with the possibility of violence, it affects you. I don't care who you are and how tough you are and where you came from and what you think you've done, Marines, SEALs, and whoever. That still you're human. You have compassion. I know I've been questioned on sometimes how little compassion I may have, because I like I explained to you a little earlier, I joke a lot about things, and people didn't think I'm being serious about it. But I think it makes me joking about something, when I get serious, it makes it serious, and it's easier for people to understand. So, but with that, this one did bother me quite a bit. The inmate had went home. He was a young kid. He went home under something to testify in court again or do something, and came back, and these older inmates, of course, that were on the mental health unit, dealing with mental issues as well as their violence, and they kind of labeled him as being a snitch. He went home to be a snitch, which that wasn't what he'd done, and so they killed him with a fire extinguisher, and he was a real young kid, and that bothered me. I hate to see that kid got his life taken away from him that quick and that early for something that he wasn't really knowledgeable of just because he was a kid. And
he went back to where he was from and testified at a trial, and then came back and they labeled him as a snitch and they killed him.
Yes.
Hit him in the head with a fire extinguisher.
Yeah, about 5 or 6 times. Yeah.
And you respond, you see him laying there dead?
Yes.
Yeah. You go home from work and it's on your mind. I mean, do you see that picture in your mind of him laying there when you're at home?
I actually did. But things I dealt with, I don't want to say made me cold to these issues, but dealing with where I grew up, how I grew up, being in the military, the Marine Corps at a young age. I didn't grow up in one of the best places as far as, it wasn't the leave it to the beaver families. We grew up rough. That was just how we grew up in Eastern Kentucky. We had our time. We had good times, but we fought and fights and whatever. But you have to be cut from a different breed, both inmate and staff, to survive that. And I mean, you've seen that as well. That there's inmates come in that they're not built to do time. They're not going to make it, and it. You can realize it. That's the same way we could with staff. We just know that staff member's not going to make it. They're not cut for this. They're not. They get hesitant. I always told them, hey guys, I taught a lot of IF class at Lexington. I was one of the instructors there for IF for the correctional side of stuff and firearms and those kind of things. And I tell them, look, guys, if you got to run, that's a choice you make. That's what you got to do. But be productive as you're running. Call the control center. Tell them where I'm at, what's going on. It's the best you can, and run. I don't care. But tell somebody I'm getting my butt kicked down here, or I'm kicking somebody. Tell somebody something's going on down here. Just don't take off running and run out of the front door screaming and never come back. At least do me that favor.
Let's talk a little bit about staff, right? Because when I had showed up at Lexington, they had just had, I believe it was a counselor. She got busted. She was bringing in phones. Dude was, call it what it was. Dude was banging her. And you worked as an S.I.A, right? So when staff are bringing things in, how does staff usually bring stuff into a prison? It's out there on the internet, but you could tell us from your perspective when they're bringing in phones. What are these female staff doing? How are they bringing it in?
Well, male or female staff bringing in stuff. Well, I experienced with as much as with both of them. Female staff, that again too is a whole different beast to realize that. You're probably familiar with at being at Lexington. Several stories of staff that had got involved with inmates, and some of the females. We had some staff that committed suicide because they knew they were getting ready to do a lot of time, and that bothered me. I'm like, come on, guys. We should be better than this. If I, as a barely high school graduate from Eastern Kentucky, can see the writing on the wall that we should be doing better for staff to prevent this, to make them have a feeling of self-worth, to prevent them from being manipulated by an inmate. That's what we need to be doing. It's kind of disturbing. And then and that was like the first 10 or 15 years it was more staff stuff. But then I got to see in the last part is the injustice we're doing to the inmates as well. The things that people make the decisions for inmates have no clue why.
All right. So really what I'm asking you is this. We talked a little bit about the staff. You got these staff bringing stuff in. How do they usually bring stuff into a federal prison? I mean, people in the public are thinking this is a federal prison. There should be no way anybody can get anything. Are they bringing it in their lunch boxes? Are they putting it in, certain places? Give us, your knowledge.
Well, the putting it in certain places thing that's a very extreme for staff members to be doing that. I'm not saying it never happened, but more than likely that issue wasn't going down at places I was at. Bringing it in a lunchbox, bringing it in the purse, and of course. A lot of if that's the staff bringing it in, then you have your regular inmates, of course, bringing their families, bringing stuff in through their means of getting things there, and but for staff mainly it was just, and it wasn't a lot, so that bringing in small amounts in on their personal, like purses or backpacks, lunch boxes, those kind of things.
So a staff's bringing shit in. They're walking through they go through a metal detector and a screening up front too when they walk in. But no one's really searching their bags, right? Unless the S.I.A. and S.I.S. is on them. And eventually, people talk and you guys lock in. So,
Yeah.
You're not checking bags. You're just letting them walk through, right?
Sadly, yeah. Sadly, yeah. From a lot of that, they're of course, you're going through the motions, going through the metal detectors, and if there's something goes off, I've had a couple of staff accidentally bring firearms to the metal detector, and especially up in New York, it's a dangerous place. So they get there and they're like, oh no. And you can tell, you knew when you got up there, they were just brokenhearted. What's going to happen? Scott, what's going on with me? Hall, what's going to happen to me? And I'm like, man, you made a mistake. We'll get through this. You're going to do some time on the street probably, but right now we got to do our protocol, make sure the weapon's safe, secure the weapon, get it out of here. You're going to go home, those kind of things. But, so you would catch those kind of items, but say you got a cellophane bag full of marijuana or K2 or whatever, and that's not going to go off. And they're not, a lot of times, they don't have, they just don't have the staff or the time. They're not going through every bag. Or they're not. You want to be able to think you could have some credibility and depend on somebody working there. You hope.
What's it like for an S.I.A. to get a female staff member, right? Because we had one in Raybrook. She was a school teacher. She ends up in this relationship. Like, I mean, dudes are like watching this. You walk in and you see like this dude screwing the teacher, like, and the whole compound's talking about it. So when you end up getting a staff member that gets caught having sex with a prisoner, what's it like in that kind of interrogation room? What happens in there? Are they like, oh no, it's not true? Do they admit it? What usually happens?
Yeah, of course they go through the natural progression of interview. They denial or no, this didn't happen, or then you see they get to look, oh, how could they have figured this out? Or then they start, oh well, what can I do to lessen this? How can I present this to make it a little, And I was always I was always one when I conducted an interview. I had the answers before I did the interview. I knew. I mean, I did questioning. I did pre-interviews with people. I put my work in. I just didn't assume. I got, So when I'm asking you questions, I'm giving you ultimatums too. I'm like, brother, I know, or ma'am, I know. So I want you, if you say this, it's going to speed along the process. It's going to, trust me, at the end, you're going to feel a lot better about getting this weight off your shoulder and being done. But if you lie to me, let's dance. We're going to play ball. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to lie to me, because then now you're making me work. And that's a 4-letter word. I don't like it. I'm not going to, if I don't have to. But if you're going to make me work.
I got to stop you. So you get them in there and you tell them, hey, look, this, you'll feel better when this is over with. But really, they may not feel better, because at the end, they might be going to prison, right?
True. Or they may be committing suicide. But in the end, I don't know if I was really telling them that they'd feel better or I'd feel better.
How many people, say, "Hey, can we just forget about this? I need my job, please."
Yeah,
You
what can I do? I mean, what can I do to make this go away? And I'm like, hmm, you can't. Sorry. It's just, and I'll be honest. I just being honest. I'm not, and inmates same way too. You get an inmate hemmed up on something. He knows he's getting her to get bus therapy. He knows it's going to take 6, 7, 8 months to get his visits set back up when he gets somewhere else, or he's going from the East Coast to the West Coast. So he's like, "Come on, man, I can give you something else, Hall. I'll give up something else. I'll tell you, let me stay here." And I'm like, I didn't ask you for nothing else. If you had something else to tell me, you'd have started this conversation out like that. So, I'm not here to make deals. You can try that with an attorney. You can try that with OIA or OIG. I'm just here putting the facts together. But your opportunity to negotiate you're doing it with the wrong one. That's not my job.
Some SIAs do negotiate, right? I mean, there are some SIAs that do that, correct?
They like to think they do. But I've seen a lot of, I've seen some good the old school SIAs that did work, and they would tell you. I've had some tell me, some of the guys, lieutenants, that it's harder to do that type of work because you got to keep your P's and Q's straight. You got to know what deals you've dealt with somebody, what you gave somebody, what you offered them. And, you're conducting interviews with 3 or 4 inmates about the same issue. And these guys, y'all, y'all are slick. Y'all are good. Y'all got all kinds of time. You put your stories together. So, if you want to try to be that deal worker, that deal cutter, you could get hemmed up. And I always said, no, I'm smart. I'm smart enough to know when something's going bad, but I'm also, thank God, I was smart enough to know I'm not going to put forth an extra effort to go after you. But I'm damn sure not going to put an extra effort in to protect you, because that's work, and I don't have to. I'm a government employee. That's how I said, look, these guys show up here bringing in crap and being dirty and making all kinds of extra money. I'm working at least, but I want my job to be easy. I want the inmate's life to be easier. I know there's things that you had to do. You run your business, you run your car, you run your house. You got to have your hustle. Uh, don't bother me. Leave me alone. Don't involve me with that. Don't bring it in front of me. Don't try to put me on, under a spotlight of not knowing you're doing it and flaunting it in front of me. Because if you do, I'm okay. I'll shut you down. It don't bother me. But at the same time, I can let so you're selling cigarettes for $500 a pack. Good for you. You're an inmate. That's what you got. That's how you're making a living. That's how you're keeping your family up. That's how you're taking care of things. It's not my job to, of course it's guilty, but I mean, of course it's wrong, and you're guilty of doing something wrong. But at the same time, I was always like, there's somebody that makes a lot more money than I do that should be fixing this problem, not me. You're not paying me the money to fix it. You're just paying me the money to make sure that the staff and these inmates are safe, mainly. But I'm not. How do you want me to spend my time worrying, fixing how the contraband's getting in, when you won't listen to us, and we've done told you how it's getting here, or why it's getting here, or we've done told you that taking the weights off the yard's not going to be beneficial to the staff or inmates. Definitely not going to be beneficial to inmates.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit too. But I want to come back to about the cigarette thing and stuff like that. Let me reverse. Let me fix this. You got a guy on your compound selling heroin. He's been selling heroin there for a year. Do you want this guy off your yard?
Yes, I do, because he's a potential danger to me and my staff. That not my staff, potential staff I worked with, because of what he has. Another inmate may go to no matter, you don't know what means that inmate will go to get that. So it's endangering the staff as well as other inmates. And then I go back to, take it personal. I'm like, but you're still trying to make the easy way out. You're still trying, you even though you're in a prison and you chose drugs to be your hustle in prison. Come on, man. Wait, see the end of, see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's a train. It's coming at you. It's not going to stop.
So the heroin dealer is a main target because of all the problems that come with it. What about the guy that's selling the cigarettes on the compound? Is he a main target, or he's doing what he does? If we get lucky and we get you, then we got you.
Yeah, if you get, I'm gonna get you. I'm going to get you, but I'm not going to put forth the effort at going at you that I'm going to the hard drug guy immediately right there, or the shot caller per se, big guy. Then there's only a few in that car making anything out of it, any money out of it, or any profit out of it. But yeah, I'm gonna go after the hard drug guy, but I'm still watching the cigarette guy because I don't know what he's piling that money up for. Who's he getting? What kind of business is he still involved in? And worst case scenario, is this a potential hit on a staff member? Is he saving up some money to do something to a staff member that made him mad some time ago, or those kind of things?
So the hustle thing, right? When you're
Yeah.
watching these guys, tell the people like how, because I interviewed a guy the other day. He talked about he was doing his thing and dude got on the phone to send him $5,000. How dumb are some of these people, man? I mean, you're listening to them on their phone calls. They're blatantly talking about the shit they're doing, right?
Inmate or staff?
I'm talking about the inmates. You're listening on their phone calls when.
Hey, inmates are genius. Staff are staff are dumb. I don't
Stop you. We'll talk about the staff.
I don't mean that. That's a little hard. I understand. I'm sorry about that. That's a little hard. But a staff member will talk about what he's doing. If you listen, he'll talk to the inmates about what he's doing just as much as the inmates are talking about what's going on.
Yeah, but what I'm asking you is because you said some of the inmates are genius, which there's some pretty smart dudes in there, make no mistake. But how many times have you listened to conversations where they're talking to their girl like, yo, you're coming through this weekend, pretty much, man, bring them Suboxone. I mean, they got their little code words, but I mean, really, they're not tricking anybody, right? You're listening right in on the conversation.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Or we're watching the cameras. You got videos, you see things. I mean, Brooklyn, we had deliveries of drugs coming at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning out, of course, where it being inside the city. It's set up different trash cans on the corners kind of thing, or across the street, and they would drop off their drugs in McDonald's bags or whatever into the garbage cans. And then when the campsite inmates would go onto the work side, inside the dining facility to work, they're going checking in. You'd see one of them slide off over and open the trash can up and get the McDonald's, and then we'd be smiling, waiting on him somewhere when he rolled in with it.
Yeah, you see some crazy stuff working in there, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
One of the craziest things you've ever seen.
Man. I saw when we were female at Lexington, when we went male, they of course sold everything that we were getting. Lowe's, we were getting medical. Wasn't going to be that bad. But a lot of the guys there, a lot of people there didn't understand staff wise that meant we're administrative. We're getting everybody. And you mentioned that earlier. So just seeing the staff and the inmates that had been at Lowe's and camps dealing with those inmates coming 10, 15 years out of a penitentiary. That was crazy, seeing the mental adjustment that people had to make, and watching, I called them the door warriors, the staff that were, when the females were there, they were tough, selling wolf cookies. They were the ones that, busting everybody and being Joe police officer and marching around, getting into everything. And then all of a sudden the men show up, and where did the tough guy go? Where did the tough correctional officer go I had last week dealing with females? Where'd they run off to?
You also talked about letting like the administration know, don't take the weights out of here. Don't do this. It's going to make it worse. I always say that the number one thing in prison is food. It keeps people comfortable. If you're not hungry, you're laying it down, and food can become an issue. They take the microwaves out of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Were you there when that happened?
Yep, sure was.
What do you think about that? Them taking the microwaves?
Insane.
Why do they take the microwaves? No one really knows. Do you know why they took them? I mean, your wife worked in central office.
The politically correct story they're telling us, of course, at that time is there was some politician that made some bill or whatever, presented something that the taxpayers' dollars was not going to go to pay for fund schooling for inmates. It wasn't going to, all these restrictions it had on it. This was back in the 90s, and of course the weights, all that stuff was part of that program that he said was going away. We're going to start treating inmates like inmates. They're not getting this and that. That was one of the deals with the microwaves. Then, of course, also for security or for safety reasons, some of your higher custody level mediums, penitentiaries, of course, and it happened at Lowe's too. But you got the inmates heating stuff up in the microwave, baby oil, water, and that kind of thing, and throwing it on other inmates. Not as much there at Lexington, but of course, when you start telling a war story from Big Sandy or Lee County, or it comes back. Well, Lexington's in there, and each region, Mid-Atlantic region, was handling that. We'll just follow what they want us to do. Get rid of the microwaves, get rid of the education stuff. But the weights on the yard was the big thing, and was the weight still there when you were there? So see, we
weights were still there. Yep, 100%.
That was a big deal. We got to keep those, and I know that helped us help control a lot of issues. If things that happen going out on the yard, you'd have inmates say, no, we're not going, this ain't going to happen here. Take it somewhere else because we're not losing the weights.
Say this, right? This is what people don't realize. Yeah, people are heating up stuff. Very, very seldom are people really,
right.
I've seen 2 incidents in the 20 years that I did where someone heated something up in the microwave and threw it on staff. Look, they got microwaves in county jails. They got microwaves in, damn near probably every state prison system.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it's comfort. But when you take the microwaves, you don't stop people from heating stuff up. They just start destroying other shit, and they make heating elements. And they make stingers. And if someone wants to, boil some hot water or boil some baby oil and throw it on someone, there's 1,000 ways to do it. They just create more issues. And I think taking the microwaves out, taking the weights out, this genius politician that gets in there, they don't think about all the shit that comes with it because they know nothing about prison. They know nothing about the security level, right? When you work on the security aspect. How
many politicians you seen go to camp visit?
I mean, when they do come in, they probably go to lower security prisons. Right?
Yeah, they go to the camp. They go to a camp and visit. Politicians go to the camps and visit. But when you were at Big Sandy, did you see the president or vice president of the United States roll up to Big Sandy and come in for a tour? Hazleton, how'd you like to have seen that? That would have been nice.
Seen, obviously Obama went to Oklahoma, right? El Reno. Yeah. I've also seen, judges and stuff actually come to Raybrook, but never in Big Sandy, never in USP Lee, never in USP Pollock. They don't show up to places like that, right? And like I said, the lawmakers don't really know shit about corrections. They don't know shit about the prison system. And I always say this about Warden O'Brien. Warden O'Brien, he understood prison, man. He ran a good prison. When I was in USP Lee, he ran a great prison.
I knew him. He probably doesn't remember me or know me as well, but I knew O'Brien, Mr. O'Brien, Warden O'Brien. I knew other great coming in when I did in the 90s. Of course, I don't know if I can mention their names, the staff.
How about Rios? Maybe Rios might have been someone you knew.
Rios, I've heard of Rios. Mike Nally.
I'm not sure.
Harley Lapping.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so Mike Nally, Harley Lappin were probably the two dominant figures of anything that was good about the Bureau of Prisons and how it was being ran. And then kind of got railroaded with the budget and financing and financial issues and all that. And then, unfortunately, during their tour at D.C., they started the death sentence back. I was involved in a couple of those executions as security. So yeah, and that was under their watch. Joe Booker, Warden Booker, was another god. He was just a phenomenal correctional minded, security minded individual.
You talked about executions. I mean, were you working at Terre Haute?
I was on they took teams that we went up there and provided security. And I was fortunate enough to had a lot of training with Terre. Not fortunate enough to go to, fortunate enough to go to the execution. That was a big deal. That's part of history that I was got to be a part of, and it meant something to you, or it meant something to me because of the nature of that, the first one. I'm not familiar with the other executions that have taken place as much as that first one, though, and that was a big deal.
Whose execution was that?
Whose?
Yeah, who'd they execute?
The Oklahoma McVeigh.
So you were there for the McVeigh execution?
Yes, sir.
What was that like? I mean, for Timothy McVeigh, I mean, this is his execution. What was he like when you were, escorting him to the death chamber?
Okay, well, I wasn't in that crew. I wasn't with that group that got inside. I know people that were, though, and they don't talk a lot about that. I don't understand why. I was mainly on the outside perimeter securities with the a lot of the Terre Haute people, and they brought down. I think they had some Marion guys there. They brought in the heavy players, from the big penitentiaries to provide security. But Lexington, we had always trained with Terre Haute and DCT, and we were kind of at the spearhead of the new DCT, and we were getting a lot of the training provided by the Terre Haute people, and they, we were like their little brothers. They were our big brother. We were their little brothers in Kentucky, and they let us come up, and we rode airboats up and down the river, and we rode four-wheelers with shotguns, making sure nobody got inside the security or anything. Yeah, it was different. It was it was exciting. It was a part of it that'll always be a part of the history I had with them, and it's a good story. I kind of like good stories every once in a while.
What was it like when he gets executed? Do you feel any type of sadness, remorse? I mean, for the people that he was involved in destroying, or the fact that, hey, this dude just lost his life and I was here part of. I mean, you like good stories, but you know what? All stories don't have good endings. Depending on who you are.
And again, I don't want to be faulted for that being like I told you earlier. I'm lighthearted about a lot of things. But in sense, I still keep it serious. I still keep my things are still serious to me that affect me. But McVeigh was one of those that he hurt a lot of people. He did, for whatever reason, he thought he was justifying it in his mind, but he hurt a lot of kids. That was a big issue too with me. That those kids that died during that horrible event, and then of course being fellow law enforcement officers. But as far as feeling any certain way, it was like, well, I was kind of surprised and shocked it was done as fast as it was done. I believe a lot of people in the United States felt that way, that, you kind of knew this was serious because they didn't prolong it over such a, 5, 10, 15 years. They did this one pretty quick.
Yeah, I think he was at the end of his line too. He just knew it was inevitable, and he wanted to go. Some of that stuff I think had to do with Waco and how he felt about those kids, and the Ruby Ridge thing. He felt like, hey, the government also did some bad things to kids, right?
Yes. Yep.
Live in a crazy world, but hey, listen, two wrongs don't make it right.
No.
But anyway, listen, I appreciate you coming on. Anything you want to say before we get ready to close?
No, I hope I've done your show a service, hopefully I've met your expectations and your listeners. I really like how you do your podcast. I like how you present that. I know we kind of talked a little bit at the beginning of my interest, and I'm looking at trying to pursue this route now, but I want to do it on a different platform. Again, I've got to, you or anyone that's worked in corrections will understand. My name of my podcast, I want, if it's not too early to say it, I want it to be CO, because it seems like it's what you heard probably 100 times a day. Every day you went in, CO, I need this, or not as much at the penitentiaries you were in. Y'all operate in a different manner where you don't talk to the corrections as much, or you portray that you can't talk to unless you got your buddy with you, those kind of things. But
if I'm in the shoe, in Big Sandy, hey, CO 15 cell, CO.
CO, I need some toilet paper, CO. But then I said there's COs and there's inmates, and then there's guards, and there's there's guards and there's convicts, and I was always guard hall. That's what I said. CO sounds good, but all right, no, I'm a guard. I'm guard hall. Let's make it simple. Keep it what it is. It ain't nothing fancy.
Well, listen, again, I definitely appreciate you. I don't think I've ever seen anybody bring an S.I.A. on. I had an associate warden on from Thompson before,
yes,
who
sir.
was fully against, what was going on over there, where the staff were just brutalizing prisoners. But,
Yes,
look, I'm not, I see it both ways. I've been there. I know that there's some dudes in there that are vicious. I know there's some vicious ass cops out there, some vicious prisoners. I mean, if I was a cop and you threw shit on me, I wouldn't have a job. I mean, I'm just keeping it real. I'd probably be going to prison. So, they deal with shit on both ends.
Not something lighthearted. I got gassed or gunned one time, or not gunned. I'm sorry, I don't want to say gunned. That's a whole different issue. But I got gassed in shoe at Lexington once, and I've got a real bad weak stomach, and the inmate threw it on me. We were in the cell with him, and the inmate threw it on me, and I threw up on the inmate, and he was like, not once, but I threw up on him like 3 times. And he was like, the next 2 or 3 days he saw me, he said, I'm not doing that again.
That's crazy. So listen, again, you know what? I appreciate you coming on, man, sharing your story, your experiences. It gives people another glimpse of, the other side. There's 2 sides here in that world. So again, thank you for coming on. I'm going to tell people, if you like what we're doing, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Blood on the Razor Wire TV. Until tomorrow, we're out.